Hello everyone! Okay, so this video feels like a little bit of a long time coming, but I am only 2 months postpartum, so obviously everything is very fresh for me, and this is just the first time I'm really having time to sit down and make this video. We actually asked you guys some questions that you might have about just recovery and all of those things, so if I'm looking down at the iPad, that is why. But some of these questions are definitely very similar to each other, so I'll kind of try to read through the question and then kind of consolidate some of my answers. But let's get started. I'm excited to talk about this. Actually, this portion of from the beginning of like pregnancy through birth and now postpartum, this portion has actually been on the easier side for me, which I'm really thankful for. And I will go ahead and just say up front, I know that what I'm about to say and even share is not the case for everyone, so I'm super thankful for this part of my journey. Everyone's journey is different. I'm also gonna go ahead and say that disclaimer, like you cannot apply anyone's their birth story, their pregnancy experience, or their postpartum journey to each other, and everyone's different and all of those things. So I am just sharing from my perspective how things went for me. Let's get started. The first question is from Paige, and she just generally asked, how has recovery been? I would say it's been really positive and also really hard, and I think that's really normal for everyone. Mainly, I think for me, like the physical aspect has been the harder portion, but also it hasn't been like the hardest it can be at the same time. Generally, I feel like I've had a positive outlook on recovery, but the biggest adjustment for me has been just getting used to my new body. Mentally, that's been really hard. I look very different than I did at the beginning of pregnancy, and that's been tough on me. Just kind of culminated into like a difficult like battle mentally, and just as I recover and giving myself grace and all those things. But overall, recovery physically and mentally especially has been really positive. So that's the general like summation of recovery, I guess. Did I tear? Yes, I did tear, but it was very minor. And I didn't tear this way, which might be TMI, but I didn't tear this way. I actually like tore kind of at the top. So that was definitely not bad at all. I'm really thankful. I also believe 100% a huge part of that was because I had a midwife who really knew how to like maximize like keeping me from tearing throughout labor. Like she really did a good job of like massaging. Like I feel like that's a huge thing because that helps like create just relaxes your muscles. So there was like a lot of preparation that went into that even in labor for me, so I feel like that's a huge reason that I didn't tear. It still was kind of painful. I feel like you're just sore. I mean, regardless of whether or not you tear, like you're just sore. You just birthed a child, so either way you're gonna be really sore even if you didn't tear. So I just like sitting down is just probably the worst. Like the up and down of like after you have a baby is really tough. I would say that was probably the hardest part of like, especially the first like few weeks. I would say even after a month I felt significantly different, and now I feel totally normal. So, which is a miracle. There are some people that really struggle with it for a long time, but that's just personally how my body has bounced back in that specific way. How has breastfeeding been? Breastfeeding has been really positive. I'm really thankful for that. Obviously, it can be so different for so many people. A lot of that has to do with like what your supply looks like, if your baby latches, if they are easy to feed, if they're not easy to feed. Weston, thankfully from the beginning, has been like very motivated. There was definitely like probably a good solid like week to week and a half where like getting him to latch well and really consistently and not painfully was really hard, but I think that just takes practice. And I'm really thankful, even having my mom super close by, she was just able to come over and just like help me, because honestly, sometimes you just need someone to kind of like, you're just figuring it out, even position wise, and you're figuring out what's comfortable for your baby. I feel like every baby is different, even the way they want to be held and the way you want to sit and what's comfortable for you. So that definitely was like just a short window of difficulty, but like I said, Weston is a super motivated eater, so once he got the latch down, it's been really simple. There's never an issue with Weston wanting to eat. I will say one of the more interesting experiences was my milk didn't come in till like day 5, which was kind of weird. So I had like primarily colostrum up until that point, which that's not the case for everybody. Some people's milk, I mean, typically it comes in on day 2 to 3. Mine came in more like 5. I think it was like the night of day 5. Yeah, so it like came in with a vengeance. I woke up and my shirt was like soaked. Well, and no one like really warned me about that. Like I knew that like it came in powerfully, but it was definitely a different experience than I would have anticipated. And it just feels like very bizarre because there's nothing like it. But yeah, overall breastfeeding has been a very positive experience, and I don't know, I didn't expect to love it as much as I do. I think it's really cool just the way that God created it to be so bonding between you and your baby. And also, you guys probably know, but Marcus and I went like on an overnight for our anniversary, so I left him with my mom and obviously the rest of my family. But I trust my mom. Obviously, she's had 6 kids and knows babies very, very well, so it was just really sweet to be able to leave him with her. I wouldn't leave him with anyone else. But he takes a bottle like a champ, which also is not necessarily common even for babies who breastfeed really well. But he takes a bottle like a champ. I'm just convinced he just likes food wherever he can find the food. But even seeing him take a bottle is actually really sad for me, which I never anticipated being like that. Like, and there's definitely still parts of me that like it's an emotional experience for me, like getting to breastfeed your child. Like that's just like it's a beautiful part of God's design, and it feels very like satisfying and like motherly to be able to surprise them, to be able to surprise them, to be able to be able to supply them with that. So that is definitely something that's really sweet that I didn't anticipate loving as much as I do. What's your favorite part about being young parents so far? I would say like just our energy level is different. I think also as you get older you become less naturally energized, and I think being 19 and 20 has actually been really helpful because we're tired, but we're also still like able to really, and that's a practical note, that's not my favorite thing, but that's something that I think has really practically helped us because the lack of sleep is definitely real, and I think as you get older it probably gets harder to have less of that. So I think being younger for those types of things has been to our advantage. But my favorite part about, I don't even know if being young parents really plays much into it, to be honest. I think we'll probably see the benefit of being young parents more so as he gets older. I think my body has just bounced back more quickly because I'm young. Not necessarily. I mean, there's also people who are younger that could have really hard births, and that definitely impacts it, but I think that definitely changes the way your body bounces back. So I'm thankful for that. And just my favorite part about being more like parents in general is just the fact that, I don't know, we just created this life together. Like you're looking at a little version of you and the person you love most in the world, and it's the most incredible thing you will probably ever experience. Moving on. Ooh, this is a fun question. What have been my go-to outfits? I am wearing a perfect one right now. My go-to outfits have been like loose fitting. These pants are like linen-y pants. I think they're actually from Target. I got them like last year. So this is like a linen button-up, and that's definitely been like kind of my go-to type things. That's another thing, having like button-ups is really convenient for breastfeeding. So my go-to has been like button-up shirts that are cute, and at first I was just in button-up PJs and pants. That was the best. This is a cute question. Did you guys drive really slow on the way home from the hospital? Yes, Marcus drove so slow, like the slowest he has ever driven in his life. If you guys are around us any extended period of time, our joke is that like the only time that we argue is in the car, because I think it's a me problem because I'm a control freak and I get really anxious, mainly when other people drive. But like, I just feel like Marcus is not a good driver, and so I get really anxious in the car. But if Marcus drove every day like he drove on the way home from the hospital, we'd never fight again. Love you, babe. I think like practical things for me, things that I wouldn't get next time, and this is, I feel like I'm about to have some unpopular opinions about things that everyone like swore by. I hated, like when I mean hated, like I hated the dermaplast. I know that might sound really weird, but maybe I'm like allergic to it, but I swear that stuff is like super like itchy and just not comfortable for me. That might be like a personal preference, but like anytime I used it, it was really irritating. And maybe not in like the first 2 days, but I swear after that, as I started recovering, like it just did not feel good to me. So I didn't like the dermaplast. I didn't like the tucks. I didn't like the tucks like pads like towards the end, but it was more as I was like starting to be like completely healed, and it was like more itchy. But at the beginning I swore by like the little tucks like circles, and I would just like line them up in like the full length pads. Also I did not realize, y'all, the hospital gives you so much stuff. Like, I took home probably 2 bags like this big of just like postpartum stuff, and I like put things on for like postpartum on my baby registry. And this might sound weird, but honestly I would go back and not even put any of that, because I still have like a whole box of like the Freedom Mom like ice pack things, and I used a few of them, but actually what I noticed about them is they like don't stay cold, and they don't get as cold as the ones they give you at the hospital. And I just used the hospital ones because, especially with how like kind of quick that portion of recovery was for me, like I just used those the whole time. I didn't even really use the Freedom Mom ones. So wouldn't buy the Freedom Mom things, would not use Dermaplast, would use the Tux like little circle witch hazel pads at the beginning. I also did use like, it was like Organic Mama's like perineal spray, and I did like that actually more than the Dermaplast, I feel like, towards the end. So yes, that's things I probably wouldn't get. Recovery must-haves. I will say this, I loved the Freedom Mom boy shorts. Those were my absolute favorite. I've used some of the adult diapers, to be honest, but I didn't like them near as much. Like the Freedom Mom shorts don't feel bulky, and you obviously like line them with a pad, but like my go-to was like the Freedom Mom boy shorts, an extra long pad, and 3 Tux like pads, and then I would do like the perineal spray, the like Organic Mama one or whatever, and then yeah, that was pretty much my go-to. But sometimes, typically I would use like the ice pad. But yeah, I didn't struggle with peeing. I really struggled with pooping. Honestly, I swear the pooping thing was like super mental, because I just like could not, like, for the first like 2 weeks I did poop. Disclaimer, I did not poop for 2 weeks, but anytime I would go to poop, I was in tears. Like, I'm tearing up. I was seriously I was so terrified. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna like bust open. But that's exactly how it feels, because like no one tells you that like the sensation for pushing a baby out is way too similar to taking a crap. And y'all, you listened to me in our other video, like it is way too similar. And so it just feels terrifying to go poop. But anyways, peeing was not as much of a problem for me. It kind of was burning a little bit at the beginning, but I think some of that is because of where my tear was. So it was kind of like, yeah, but sitting down 100%, I was really like, I was just super sore, and I feel like that's pretty common. But I'm really, really sorry that that's been really hard for you, because that's totally understandable. I know a ton of people that like peeing was pretty difficult afterwards. So it's so again, guys, it's so different for everybody. So that's why I'm trying to be so specific about like, don't apply my experience to your experience. Like, definitely listen to a lot of different people's experiences, so you know the like wide variety of like recovery stories and birth stories and all the things. How am I splitting the nighttime workload? Okay, this is also not normal, I don't think, for majority of babies, but at least for Weston, like since we brought him home from the hospital, he has slept like a champ. He genuinely, we had to wake him up to feed him like the first 2 weeks of his life, because obviously as newborns they're super sleepy anyways, but he was just a good sleeper. So I had to wake him up at night, which was totally fine, and whenever we woke him up he would eat really well. But some babies are just more naturally sleepy, and he was super tired. So at night he slept through the whole night if we didn't wake him up. So we would wake him up every 2 hours pretty much, because when they're brand new that's how much they need to eat. Typically at night I'm gonna be totally honest, I have taken most of the nighttime like load, primarily because, at least for me, I don't see a point in Marcus waking up, especially because he works all day and he has to get up really early. I don't see a huge point in waking him up and having him like sit with me while I'm breastfeeding, mainly just because I'm a little bit sleepy anyways. I'm just trying to feed him, make sure he's good, and get him back to sleep. So like there's not a whole like big reason for me to wake him up. Lately he's been really sweet, and he's like insisted on like changing his diaper like before I feed him, just so he has a dry diaper and I don't have to change him after. And typically I would change him before anyways. But that's pretty much how we're splitting the nighttime workload, because Weston is such a good sleeper for the most part. Lately it has been a little bit harder. He's becoming more aware, so even sleep in the day, like I said before, has been a little bit harder. So Marcus is obviously super helpful, and if he's fussy at night, he's real quick to be like, babe, I got him, like go back to sleep, especially if I've been up feeding him. So that's something that just kind of, it's been like kind of playing it by ear, honestly, but I've always felt super supported by Marcus. I don't feel like, oh, you're not doing anything, especially because, like I said, if I'm just gonna be breastfeeding him and like waking up and then putting him back down after that, I mean, there's no reason for Marcus to be awake, at least for me. There's some people who probably want that support, even in the beginning. Like Marcus would wake up some with me in the beginning because it's new, and even for him, like he wanted to be a part of it, which is super sweet. I feel like now I'm in the most challenging part, at least for me, because also like going back into like this might be too much, but going back into having sex again is pretty intimidating. It hasn't been like super scary again because I didn't tear that way, but that's also been something that's been like the most challenging part for me, like mentally, to overcome the fear of like, it's okay. And I already had like my 6-week obviously checkup and everything looks great, and I got like the go ahead, so but anyway, so that's been probably the most difficult part so far, just like overcoming kind of the like, I'm scared because I birthed the child. So postpartum depression or mood swings, yeah. So this is again something I'm really thankful for. I haven't experienced this at a really significant degree. I would say on really small degrees I felt this, and primarily in the first month. Initially for me, my anxiety was really bad. I am not like I'm not an anxious person. I'm an overthinker, but I'm not an anxious person. And I was very, very anxious probably the first month of his life. And some of it though was just really, actually all of it was just very irrational. Like really intrusive thoughts like, oh my goodness, like what if I'm sitting here and what if he like falls out of my arms and like falls on the floor? Like things like that were just like really out of left field for me. So they were really hard to overcome at first because I was just like, why am I thinking these things? And like that was also making me anxious. So that was definitely difficult. I would say now those things have really subsided, and at some level, and I say this to everyone, at some level, like I think you're gonna have anxieties and worries anyways, because this is like a life you're taking care of. They're in your care now, and you have never loved anything more than you love this sweet baby. So like I think having that experience is going to bring on like worries and questions and doubts and anxieties anyways. So I think having that at some level is normal, but I think the most not normal thing is when that's ruling like your actions. I actually talked to my midwife about this briefly, but just kind of the like more like, oh, I'm anxious that if I walk down the steps, like he's gonna fall out of his car seat, or he's gonna like fall down the stairs in his car seat. Like if I just, then I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna go down the stairs. Like that's the kind of thing that is more like, that's like your ruling kind of anxiety, if that makes sense. Like if your anxiety is really, really playing out, it's keeping you from doing things you need to do or that are normal to do because you're anxious something will happen. So for me, it's been like, I was really anxious to go down the steps at first at our apartment, but then I also had to remind myself of truths, like, okay, the Lord is with me. I can walk down steps before, I've walked down them before, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna take it really slowly. So I did it the first time, and then after that it became easier. So things like that, I think that kind of like my anxiety at the beginning was just really hard, and also just really made me not want to pass them around to people. That was also something, which you don't have to. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. I think being a mom already has crushed a lot of people pleasing in me, which I'm really, really thankful for, because I've struggled with, I'll probably still struggle with it at some level for my whole life, but being a mom in that area has given me freedom for the first time in my life to be like, no. And so in a loving way, like I've been able to be like, no, like I don't want him to be passed around right now, or no, sorry, you can't hold him right now, or things like that, because there's a way to obviously do that lovingly. I shouldn't have been like, no, I've never done that. So but yeah, I've been able to put my foot down a little bit more easily. But yeah, passing him around or like letting people hold him at the beginning was especially difficult. Still is not my favorite. Still really have to like fight for that. And I would say like letting your baby be held by people you trust is a good thing and a sweet thing, and I obviously think it's a sweet thing. It's just hard. It's hard to see the little person you carried around for 9 months be in someone else's arms, and it just is hard, and that's okay. But anyways, I hope that answers your questions. For me, I haven't experienced any depression. I definitely had a few like mornings, especially where I was just so exhausted, and it just made me especially like sad and just emotional, which I think is also normal too, you know, with hormones even like crashing down. So, but I haven't really experienced any depression or anything. I definitely will say postpartum rage is something that is real, and I am more irritable in moments. And this is something I would say I've actually heard a lot of moms say is like, especially if your baby is really, really fussy. For me, it's more at night. Like if your baby is really, really fussy and they're continuously crying and you're not able to soothe them, it can actually get frustrating for me. And I can feel like, I'm not angry at him, but I can feel frazzled and angry. Like I just get angry. And I would just say, wake up your partner, like wake up your husband and be like, hey, can you take him for a minute? Because I just am not in the right headspace. And I've had to do that because honestly, there's sometimes if he's crying and crying and crying, I can't handle it. So that is one thing I think I've experienced, and Marcus has been super great about being like, yeah, give him to me. You're good. Go take a nap, go take a shower, whatever. So I've just been really intentionally communicative about that when I've felt that way, if that makes sense, because you can get tired and feel burnt out because it's a lot, especially in the first month. I would say I've probably felt that more. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions about those things, but overall that's been a good experience for me, kind of combating those things. Okay, this is my favorite question. How can I help and support a postpartum friend better? First of all, asking that question is like probably the sweetest thing ever. So whoever is getting to be your friend in that season actually has such a gift in a friend. So that is a super humble and sweet question. I definitely think, at least for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just asking if you can come over and clean. I know that sounds really weird, but even for me, like just having someone who just would show up and be like, hey, what can I do? Especially in the first month of like, they want to hold their baby. Like they totally do. Like I wanted to hold my baby. I wanted to be on the couch and not have to worry about the dishes getting done, especially during the day when Marcus had to go back to work, more specifically because he was doing those things. Like just having someone be like, hey, can I throw a load in for you or fold this or whatever? Like that is probably the most helpful thing ever. Not can I come hold the baby, which obviously for me, I was like, oh yeah, you can come hold the baby too, whatever. But I think just doing things and not asking, like even being like, hey, there's these snacks on your front porch and this thing of diapers, things like that. I think that's like one of the sweetest ways that you can support someone in postpartum, because they're not going to be in the headspace to probably even ask for the things that they need or even want. So if you know that your friend loves this kind of coffee and this meal from this place, like just go get it and drop it off. Also, our church did this for us, but like creating a meal train is like an excellent way to serve someone who's postpartum, because dinner is like the primary meal that's bigger, right, that you don't want to have to worry about. So even making that and sending it to everyone that person knows, anyone who would want to drop off a meal. You could even make it like where it's just a porch drop off, so they don't have to feel like they have to have people in. For us, we really wanted to have people inside because I was feeling well and I just wanted to get to see like all of our friends like in our community. So, but that's another really just practical way. And I think just asking them like how they're doing, just being really vocal that you're praying for them, just really actively like seeking ways to encourage them and to tell them that they're a great mom. That's something for me that just like spoke volumes, like when someone was like, you are doing like such a good job, like, because it's really scary. And even if you haven't been a mom before, you can totally pour into another mom and be like, hey, you're doing a great job. Like I am so encouraged, like seeing you love on your little one. Like this is just super special. You're doing a great job. I feel like that seems like super obvious, but at least for me, that just went such a long way, because you're just trying to figure it out. It feels a little bit, actually not a little bit, it feels incredibly overwhelming, especially at first, to have a newborn that you're responsible for. No matter what age you are, it's not just being a young mom, anyone is going to feel this way. So I think just being able to be an encouragement and also just like a vessel of truth for your friend, especially if they're talking to you about things, or if they are feeling those anxieties, or if they are feeling any of those postpartum moods or things that come with that, just really giving them truth and also just listening. Okay guys, this was so fun. Your questions were super good. It's been such a sweet season, even in postpartum and in recovery. Like the Lord has just been super evident, and I'm super thankful for also just this being an easier portion for me. I will say pregnancy was super hard, so having a better postpartum journey was just really encouraging for my soul, especially after pregnancy. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'm so excited to be making more videos for you guys, and just getting to talk to you more. Thank you for following us. You're such a blessing to us, and thank you for your constant support. Even feeling like the support of you guys in this season has just been really unique.